He calls his children to stop and listen closely because this moment is not happening before them by accident. They did not arrive here by chance, and these words do not appear before their eyes without purpose. The Lord has interrupted the ordinary flow of their day because there is something there. Spirits must hear right now before doubt speaks louder than truth. There is someone already moving closer to their lives even now under his instruction, under his timing, under his unseen direction, and they must not dismiss what he is saying simply because they cannot yet see the full picture. He knows how often they have wondered whether he is still arranging things for them behind the silence, whether he still moves when days feel ordinary and nights feel heavy, whether heaven still remembers the details they no longer speak aloud because disappointment taught them to pray more quietly. But hear him now, while they were trying to survive what drained them, while they were trying to make sense of delays that stretched longer than they expected while they were asking why. Certain doors stayed closed and why. Certain answers seemed hidden. He was already moving a person through circumstances they do not know, through roads they cannot trace, through timing they could not control because he had already decided that their present season would not remain empty forever. They must not ignore this word in their hearts. They must not treat this like another passing. He sends this message to reveal what has already been written before their present confusion even began. Someone is already assigned in heaven. And whether they recognize it now or later, his hand has already touched their path to meet theirs. Before their tears became a prayer, before their loneliness found words, before their heart even understood what was missing. He was already preparing an answer, carrying breath, voice, history, and movement. They sometimes believe that because no immediate sign appeared, nothing was being arranged. But to his child, he does not begin when they finally speak. He begins long before their lips move. He knew the emptiness that would visit them before they even admitted it to themselves. He knew the questions that would rise inside them during nights when they looked strong outside, but weary deep within. He knew which burdens would become too heavy for them to carry alone, and because he knew, he did not wait for the moment they cried. He had already chosen someone before their prayer reached their lips. He had already set the timing before. Understanding caught up with his plan. This is why they must stop thinking that heaven reacts only after desperation becomes visible. He moves from wisdom they cannot measure. He prepares in places their eyes cannot enter. The answer he shaped did not begin when their pain became unbearable. It began before we even realized that one day we would need what he had already chosen to send. And the holy truth is that what the Lord prepared isn't just a sudden event nor just an unexpected moment, but often an answer wrapped in human form. Sometimes what he sends into our lives arrives through someone who carries exactly what that season needs. Many miss his answers because they are waiting for thunder while he chooses footsteps. Many search for dramatic signs while overlooking ordinary arrivals. Many expect miracles to fall in ways that erase all mystery. Yet his miracles usually arrive quietly, showing faces that do not immediately reveal why they matter. Let's listen closely. Not every answer shines when it first appears. Not every holy movement announces itself with dramatic sound. Sometimes the exact thing we pray for slips quietly into conversation through an encounter, through reconnection, in moments so ordinary that only spiritual awareness notices the difference. This is why many watch blessings pass by because they judge too quickly what didn't look supernatural enough. But we must remember some miracles arrive wrapped in simplicity. Some turning points begin with casual introductions. Some of the greatest shifts he creates start in moments we almost overlook because they expected something louder. We shouldn't assume that because something looks simple, it cannot be sacred. He has often hidden major answers inside. Moments that looked ordinary until time revealed what his hand had done. The face of what he sends may not match the picture you built in fear memory or imagination. But his purpose does not weaken because appearance looks familiar. There is mystery in what he is telling you because you may already know this person without knowing why your spirit keeps noticing them. You may soon meet them without understanding why the encounter feels strangely timely. You may unexpectedly hear from someone. Again, after distant silence or forgotten time, and you may wonder why. The moment feels heavier than coincidence. He is telling you this because heaven marks certain crossings long before human memory does. There are meetings he appoints before either side understands why the path exists. There are names he preserves in silence until the appointed season arrives. There are people whose journeys seem unrelated until one moment reveals that their road and your road were always moving toward a shared point designed by him. So do not assume that because someone belongs to your past, they cannot reappear with new meaning. Do not assume that because someone feels unfamiliar, they cannot carry something deeply connected to your future. He governs timing in ways you cannot predict, and he knows how to preserve what matters until your soul can receive it, without destroying it through fear or impatience. This is why he warns you now. Do not dismiss too quickly anyone hesitant to enter his season simply because he has learned caution through past pain. The Lord knows why he guards his heart. He knows how betrayal taught him distance. He knows disappointment trained him to pull back before hope climbs too high. He knows how fast his mind compares every new moment to what once hurt him. But if he judges every new arrival through past wounds, he might fail to recognize what is, entering with the Lord's permission. God is not telling him to trust blindly. He is telling him to stay spiritually alert. There are times when major turning points arrive disguised as simple encounters, casual conversations, brief opportunities, or quiet presence. The danger is that hurt memories often dismiss everything as ordinary before discernment gets time to listen. Yet many of the greatest shifts God brings start quietly before their value becomes clear. A single conversation can shift direction. A connection can unlock what delay hid. A person can carry a key he did not realize was missing. This is why he must not rush to close his heart where God might be opening a door. Say amen. He receives it, trusting the Lord is ready for to bless him today. What the Lord sends in this season connects to more than temporary comfort. This person brings a path to deep healing and restoration, divine direction, protection, and how to break through in ways he does not yet fully comprehend. That does not mean they replace him. It means he sometimes uses human vessels to deliver what a season requires. There are moments when healing comes because someone speaks truth where silence lived too long. There are moments when direction appears because someone confirms what your spirit has struggled to name. There are moments when protection arrives because he places wisdom near you before danger fully reveals itself. There are moments when breakthrough begins because someone carries access, perspective, courage, and a peace that shifts what has remained locked. You have prayed often for change without realizing that part of what you asked for would arrive through relationship, through encounter. Through presence, he intentionally positions near your path. This is why he speaks so carefully now, because what he releases may first look ordinary until its effect begins unfolding. Here is authority in this clearly. He did not send them by accident. He released them when your soul became ready. He waited because timing protects what heaven sends. Had certain arrivals entered earlier, you would not have understood them. Had some people reached you before, certain lessons shaped you. Fear would have misread them, immaturity would have mishandled them. Pain would have resisted them. He delayed what you thought should happen sooner because readiness matters more than speed. He knows the state of your inner life better than you do. He knows when the heart can receive without collapsing under past reactions. He knows when wisdom has grown enough to recognize what truly matters. He knows when certain chapters must close before new seasons enter safely. So when he says he released them when the soul became ready, understand that what appears delayed often arrives at the first moment the spirit can carry what comes with it. His timing is not punishment. It is protection, preparation, and mercy working together. And before this message reaches its depth and fully unfolds, keep this final truth in heart. Before this message ends, believers will understand why this connection could change what has been delayed. Not because one person becomes everything, but because he often chooses. One meeting, one arrival, one conversation, one reconnection, one simple crossing to shift what has long remained still. What seems like delay may already be moving. What seemed to remain untouched may already be under his hand. What seemed silent may already be gathering form beyond human sight. So remain attentive now. Let the Spirit stay open. Refuse quick judgment. Refuse fear-led conclusions, because what he is revealing is not unfolded yet. And what appears simple at first may carry more of his intention than they presently see. Dear believer, listen closely because he wants them to. Understand something the heart has. Often struggled to believe when days grew long and silence seemed endless. Heaven does not start working only when a believer finally speaks their pain aloud. He does not wait for their voice before he moves. He does not wait for tears before he begins, arranging what their future will require, long before their thoughts became prayers, long before their loneliness became something they could no longer hide, behind strength, long before their heart reached that place where they whispered, in secret, that they needed things to change. He had already begun setting answers into motion beyond what their eyes could see. This is why believers must not measure his activity by what they immediately feel, because much of what he does begins in silence where human understanding cannot enter. They often think that if nothing visible changes, then nothing is happening. But for his child, his most important, movements begin where no human eye can detect them, where no outward sign confirms them, where their only experience is waiting, while heaven quietly builds what will. Later appeared exactly the appointed time. Please support this channel. Its mission is to bring joy to their lives and devotion to God. And those who wish can donate through the link in the description or pinned comment to show their support. Before they understood the true shape of their own need, he already knew it completely. Before they admitted how tired their soul had become, he knew where exhaustion was settling inside them. Before they realized how deeply loneliness had stretched through their quiet moments, he had already seen every night they carried thoughts they did not share with anyone. Before confusion reached the point where they began asking why certain things remain unclear, he had already traced every hidden burden pressing on their spirit. He knows the parts of them that speak and the parts of them that remain silent. He knows the questions they ask openly and the ones they bury because even speaking them feels difficult. He knew when their smile no longer told the full story. He knew when their strength became something they wore because they did not know what else to do. He knew when hidden exhaustion settled so deeply that even hope became something they carried carefully. And because he knew, he did not wait for them to explain it to him. He began answering before their understanding caught up with what their spirit was already carrying. The person he has spoken of was not selected at the moment there. Tears finally came. They were not chosen when their loneliness became unbearable. They were not assigned after they reached the point of asking why certain seasons felt so empty. They were selected before tears ever formed, before one silent cry reached their pillow, before one whispered prayer rose from a weary heart, before one uncertain thought asked whether change would ever come. He had already set things in motion in ways we did not see. This is how his wisdom works. He prepares before we panic. He arranges before urgency strikes. He acts before desperation even understands what we need. What feels like a delay to us is preparation, already unfolding according to timing far greater than our emotions can measure. He does not improvise our answers, truly, when our pain becomes visible. He works from knowledge that saw our season before it ever arrived. Divine timing often happens in silence, because quietness protects what is being carefully formed. Much of what he prepares cannot be explained while still becoming ready. If he showed us every movement while it was unfinished, our fear would ask too many questions. Instead, our impatience would demand immediate understanding, and our minds would try to force what still needs quiet shaping. So he often allows silence, not because he has left us, but because silence becomes the hidden place where his preparation matures safely. While we thought heaven had gone, quiet his movement was already happening. While we wondered if he had forgotten the details of what burdened us, plans were already taking shape beyond what our natural senses could perceive. Silence is never proof of his absence. Silence is often proof that unseen work. It was shielded until the perfect moment of revelation. There were seasons, they believed. Nothing was happening because, outwardly, everything looked stagnant. They woke to the same unanswered questions. They walked through days that felt ordinary, heavy, and sometimes empty and hard to comprehend. They saw delays where they expected breakthrough. They found stillness where they hoped for clear signs. They watched closed doors and wondered if God had chosen to stay distant. Yet even in those seasons, they, labeled as silent, movements were happening they did not realize. Paths were crossing beyond their sight. Hearts were being shaped where they could not look. Divine timing was guarded carefully, because blessings cannot always arrive the moment they demand them. Certain answers require the quiet alignment of many unseen details before they can safely enter their lives. What feels sudden to them is not sudden to God. It only feels sudden because they were not watching where God was working. From his perspective, this was never rushed, never improvised, nor accidental. He saw the beginning while they only endured the waiting. He saw where each piece must align, while they only felt silence. He knew when certain chapters had to, closing doors before a new movement enters, without confusion. He knew which parts of their heart still needed strengthening before what he prepared could reach them without being misunderstood. To them, it feels like something appearing suddenly, but to him, it is simply the visible arrival of something that has been quietly prepared across time. Think of the seasons where they believed they were simply enduring emptiness. There were days when they thought the repetition meant nothing new was forming. There were moments when disappointment taught them not to expect too much, because expecting had hurt before. There were nights when their own thoughts asked whether waiting had meaning or whether silence meant they had been overlooked. Yet even there for them, unseen, preparation continued. While they were learning patience through circumstances they did not choose, other lives were also moving through their own preparation, while they were being strengthened in hidden ways. Someone else was also passing through lessons. Delays shaping correction and timing under his hand. Gently. They saw only their own waiting, but he was governing more than one story at once. This is why he reminds them, heaven begins answers before humans recognize the need. The answer is often already forming, while they still struggle to name what hurts. The Lord's help is often already moving while we still believe silence means delay. His provision is often already arranged, while we still wonder if our prayers have reached him. He does not begin where our understanding begins. He begins where his wisdom already sees what tomorrow requires. That is why our present must never be judged only by visible evidence. What we call empty is often hidden, preparation still under his care. We thought at times that because no clear sign came, nothing significant was changing. But many of the most important things he does begin beneath the surface where trust must survive. Without visible proof, our hearts often want immediate reassurance. Yet faith grows strongest when we learn that his work does not depend on instant evidence. In those months where nothing obvious appeared, he was not inactive. In those seasons where we repeated the same questions, he had not stepped away. In those long stretches where ordinary life felt almost painfully unchanged, his unseen movement continued with exact precision. There were conversations happening far from our knowledge. There were connections forming in, lives linked directly to our future. There were delays he allowed because early arrival would not have carried the right fruit. He knew exactly when our loneliness would deepen enough that we would begin. He sees their needs differently. He knew when their confusion would reach the point where they would finally stop relying only on their own explanations. He knew when secret exhaustion would soften areas of their heart that strength. alone had kept guarded. And because he knew, he allowed quiet seasons not to harm them, but to prepare them to receive what earlier versions of them might not have understood. That silence taught them discernment. The delay revealed what could never satisfy them. The emptiness exposed where their trust still relied too heavily on instant comfort. And nothing was wasted, even when they did not understand why. The days felt slow. Let them hear this deeply. What he prepares is never random, never careless, never late according to truth, even when emotions say it is delayed. The person he has prepared did not suddenly appear in his thoughts because their prayers became urgent. They were already known in his wisdom before their need fully reached their own awareness. Their path was already under his watch, while they still believed they were, standing in silence, alone. Their season and theirs were already carefully measured under a timing they could not control. Type thank you, Jesus, for guiding them if he's been there. Compass in the dark. Those quiet seasons were never empty seasons. He was working in seasons hidden from their sight. What they called nothing may one day reveal itself as a precise preparation that they will understand why silence had to remain until now. And when that understanding finally reaches them, they will see that what seemed sudden in their life was never sudden in heaven. It was simply the visible arrival of what had been prepared long before they knew how deeply they would need it. There is something the Lord wants them to understand deeply because they have often looked at people entering and leaving their life and wondered why some remained only briefly while others stayed longer. Why? Certain connections came with intensity and then shifted. Why some voices arrived exactly when they were weakest and then slowly became distant after their purpose was fulfilled. People often measure relationships only by permanence. But God does not always send people with the same assignment. Not everyone he places near them is meant to remain forever, and that does not mean their presence lacked meaning. Some are sent for a season because the season itself carries a specific need, and when that need is met, the assignment changes. He knows human hearts often attach permanence to significance, but significance is not always measured by length. Sometimes one conversation changes more than years of silence. Sometimes one season of support carries enough strength to carry them through. They could not cross alone. Sometimes a carefully timed connection becomes the bridge from who they were to who they are becoming. That is why they must not misunderstand a temporary presence as failure. Some people are seasonal assignments, and even when they do not stay forever. What they brought was part of God's wisdom for that exact chapter. The Lord sends different people for stages of growth because their soul does not need the same thing in every season. The person who comforted them in one chapter may not be the one to sharpen them in another. The voice that strengthened them when they were fragile may not be the voice needed when he begins building courage in them. The hand that helped them survive one valley may not be the hand he uses when he calls them upward to a place where deeper discernment is required. This is why their lives contain different arrivals, different voices, different influences, different moments of connection that each carry something distinct. God does not send carelessly. He sends according to what the season is forming inside them. If a season requires healing, he may send gentleness. If a season requires awakening, he might send truth that unsettles comfort. If a season requires correction, he may allow someone near whose words expose what they would rather ignore. If a season requires courage, he may place strength beside them before they even realize their fear has grown loud. Every assignment has purpose, even when they do not understand it immediately. Certain seasons require voices because silence alone cannot always teach what must be learned. There are moments when they need someone whose words carry clarity when their thoughts are crowded. There are moments when confusion has lingered too long, and the Lord sends a voice that speaks with unusual precision into places they could not explain alone. There are times when one sentence from the right person reaches deeper than many private struggles because he designed that moment to unlock something hidden inside them. Not every voice near them carries the same weight, which is why discernment matters. Some voices distract, but some voices arrive carrying exactly what their spirit has been too tired to find on its own. When the Lord sends a voice in season, it often reaches them at the exact point where their own strength has become uncertain. Other seasons require comfort because He knows when burden has pressed deeper than they admit. He knows the chapters where they continue, functioning outwardly while inwardly, carrying more than anyone sees. In those seasons, He may send presence before explanation, peace before answers, warmth before clarity, because comfort itself becomes a form of healing. They often think help must always look dramatic. But sometimes the right presence itself becomes evidence that the Lord has not left them alone inside what has been heavy. Comfort sent at the right time preventing hidden exhaustion from growing deeper injury. That is why timing matters so much. What comes when the soul is weary can protect parts of them that would otherwise harden in silence. There are also seasons that require correction, though correction is rarely welcomed at first. Believers do not always enjoy what reveals where they are resisting growth. Yet, correction given in love protects their future more than unchecked comfort ever could. Sometimes He sends people who challenge what is quietly settled in them because, if certain patterns remain untouched, they will limit what comes next. Correction is not rejection. It is care that refuses to let them remain where they are when He knows they are called further. The person sent in such a season may not always feel easy to receive, but their assignment still carries purpose if they awaken what comfort alone could not change. Some seasons require wisdom because their own understanding has reached its edge. There are moments when choices ahead hold more weight than they realize, and He sends wisdom through people who see something they do not yet fully see. Wisdom may come through counsel, warning, perspective, restraint, or insight that seems simple until later. Events reveal how necessary it was. He knows how often they ask Him for signs, while overlooking wisdom standing near them in ordinary form. Yet wisdom is often one of the quietest gifts He sends, because true wisdom rarely arrives loudly. It often speaks calmly, while emotion. He speaks urgently. This is why we must listen closely in seasons when choices matter. Some seasons require spiritual covering, because many battles are unseen. Sometimes He places people nearby whose very presence becomes a shield. People who steady your mind, guarding your path, reminding you of truth, protecting you from rushing into things that will hurt you. His protection is rarely obvious, yet it shields far more than you can fully grasp right now. He knows when unseen pressure builds around you. And He knows when your heart needs strength before you even recognize what is fighting against you. The arrival He promised matches the exact emotional state you are in, because He never sends blindly. He knows if your current need is comfort, wisdom, healing, direction, correction, or quiet, reassurance. He knows where your mind grows weary at night. He knows where old hurts still shape your new expectations. He sees where deep exhaustion makes you doubt if a fresh start can still happen. He knows where your strength remains, and He knows you feel fragile even when you never say it aloud. Indeed, because He knows what He sends fits the season with perfect precision. This is why divine timing matters more than appearances. What looks ordinary may actually fit perfectly because He measures by need rather than outward image. One might wonder why such help did not arrive sooner. The reason is simple. Earlier, they would not have understood it properly. Had certain people entered when their heart was still shaped by past pain, they might have resisted what they now accept. Sent too soon, they might have feared what was actually meant for healing. They might have misread truth as danger, wisdom as intrusion, and kindness as something suspicious, correction as rejection, or support as unneeded because the soul was not yet ready to see why it mattered. Divine timing protects understanding. Some gifts become clear only after certain steps have already begun. Earlier versions of them still carried blind spots that would have distorted what God intended. They had unfinished lessons and wounds still too fresh, attachments still too strong, expectations still clinging to what had not yet been surrendered. So the Lord waited, not forgetting, but because waiting allowed readiness to grow. Believers often call delay empty because they cannot see what delay protects. Yet those delays prevent misinterpreting what arrives too soon. And had God sent this later, they would risk missing needed help exactly when the season demands. Now, there are moments when timing is critical because what arrives too late cannot support what lies ahead. Some seasons contain pressures they do not yet fully see, and he sends help before the weight becomes too heavy. If wisdom arrives too late, confusion deepens. If comfort arrives too late, exhaustion hardens. If correction arrives too late, wrong paths strengthen. And so, if protection arrives too late, unnecessary wounds appear. That is why timing matters more than outward appearance, because perfect timing often reveals more of his care than dramatic displays ever could. Believers often notice appearance first, how things look, how someone sounds, or if the form matches their expectations. But he looks deeper. Does it fit what the season requires? Does it reach where their heart now stands? Does it bring what their current chapter needs? That is how he sends. What fits the soul matters more than what first pleases the eyes. One must understand this clearly. He sends people in specific seasons because those seasons themselves carry different assignments, and spiritual growth requires different kinds of support at different moments. Some stay long, some stay briefly, some return unexpectedly, some speak once and leave a lasting impact. Some stand near quietly and still carry profound purpose. One should not judge meaning by duration. Judge instead by the fruit in their life, spirit after the encounter. Sometimes a season shifts because one person arrived exactly when heaven knew. Their hearts needed what they carried in quiet. And because his timing is exact, what seems ordinary now may later become one of the clearest signs that he knew precisely what their souls required before they could explain it themselves. Trust him. He asks them to listen carefully now on this journey, because what he is about to say can protect them from overlooking what he has intentionally placed before them. They must not quickly judge what enters their lives simply because it does not immediately match what they expected. Human hearts often make decisions within moments, building conclusions from outward appearances, timing, memory, and feelings, before spiritual discernment has had time to breathe. They have learned this world by observing patterns, by protecting themselves, by deciding quickly what feels safe and what feels uncertain. But not everything that first appears ordinary should be dismissed, and not everything unfamiliar should be treated as unworthy of deeper attention. There are moments when their first impression is shaped more by old memory than present truth, more by what once wounded them than by what he is doing now. That is why he speaks clearly. They must not allow first impressions alone to decide what deserves no further spiritual attention, because many times what he sends enters quietly enough that only patience reveals its meaning. They often expect his movement to look obvious when it first appears. You expect that if he sends something meaningful, it must arrive with immediate certainty, instant recognition, instant emotional confirmation, instant visible proof. But he does not always work according to what human expectations call obvious. He often sends through vessels that do not instantly appear extraordinary, because he knows how fast the human eye becomes distracted by appearance, missing true substance. If he always sent what looked impressive, many would start trusting outward appearances over true discernment. So he often lets his work arrive, wrapped in quiet simplicity, where only those who pause long enough can sense what outward signs do not instantly explain. The vessel may seem ordinary. The moment may feel simple. Encounter might not announce itself dramatically. Yet hidden inside can be something carefully appointed by his hand. Do not forget how often throughout your life he has used unexpected things to accomplish what you later recognized as deeply important. There were times when answers did not come from the direction you expected. There were seasons when the help you needed arrived through people you did not first imagine would matter. There were moments when one quiet conversation carried more truth than louder signs you had once wanted. He does not limit his movement to what fits your imagination. He knows exactly how to send through what pride might easily overlook, by what fear easily underestimates, by what wounded expectations might initially ignore. That is why believers must stay open, to let discernment mature before judgment closes the door. Sometimes answers arrive without obvious signs, because not every answer is designed to impress at first glance. Some answers unfold slowly, so believers. Spirit learns to recognize fruit rather than chase dramatic signals. Many look only for what shines only, what immediately feels extraordinary, only for what carries visible certainty. Yet he reminds believers again, some of the deepest movements he creates begin in ways so quiet that only later does a person realize how significant the beginning truly was. A person may enter without dramatic announcements. A conversation may begin without immediate intensity. A presence may feel calm rather than overwhelming. Yet what appears simple can still carry. Assignment. Consider this. This is why quick dismissal becomes dangerous when people assume meaning must always arrive wrapped in obvious signs. Write amen to show a heart that trusts and still believes in his promises. And share this video.